Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Walter Dillingham from Wilmington Trust, and welcome back. Welcome to our philanthropic speaker series. A little background on myself. I oversee our endowment and foundation practice, which I've been doing for over 20 years, and this is a very important part of our work at Wilmington Trust. Today, we manage and oversee over $20 billion in endowment and foundation assets. A key part of our work with our clients is our value-added services, our education. And today's a great example of that. Today is our session number 113, which we've been doing since 2011. And the topic today is raising money with autonomous AI fundraising. And the topic, gentlemen, AI is a hot topic today for the not-for-profit community. And I'm a student of AI. At first, I saw how not-for-profits were using AI to be more efficient. In fact, the invitation that we sent to you all was assisted by AI. And then nonprofits started using AI to analyze donor information. Now AI is connected to actual fundraising, which is amazing. And today that is our focus. And I am so happy to have Emily Grosha from Givesy and our panelists, MK Young and Adam Zinkovich from Bay Path University. I know we're going to have a great discussion. So ladies and gentlemen, as far as agenda goes today, we're going to move very quickly. We're going to start off with a special guest from our investment team, Chris Sporsick, who's going to talk about the capital markets briefly. Chris is a senior investment advisor at Wilmington Trust who focuses in on endowments, foundations, and pension plans. He's also a team leader of our institutional OCIO team and has over 15 years of experience. And I asked Chris for a fun fact about himself, and he says, when he was younger, he was at a New Kids on the Block concert. And he was picked out of the audience by Donnie Wahlberg to have a quick chat with the superstar. And Chris did a great job. And, I guess you could say that was his first fireside chat. So I know he's going to really do well with this fireside chat. So please welcome Chris Sporsick. Hey, Chris, thanks for being with us here today. We've been getting 3 questions from our clients that I just want to ask you. The first one is related to the valuation of the markets today. You know, the markets are, even though they've been volatile the last couple of days, they're still close to their highs. Some people think that we're in a bubble. What are your thoughts about that?
Great. Thank you, Walter. Good morning, everyone. I guess I'll first say I was actually thrown out of the audience by my dad, not picked. He wanted me to be selected. And then that was my first foray into the limelight, I guess. So I just keep going from there. In terms of the question, are we in a bubble or not? I think it's important to probably take a quick look back as to how we got here. And so we had very strong returns in the second quarter and the third quarter from an equity perspective. A lot of that was driven by solid economic data that continues to come out of the marketplace. We had second quarter GDP come in at 3.9%. I just looked at the Atlanta Federal Reserve, which tracks GDP growth on a consistent basis, and third quarter GDP is being tracked at around 4.3%. So very strong economic data coming in to the marketplace. We've had very strong earnings growth, which is helping to support the level of valuations and returns that we've seen so far. In fact, we've seen earnings growth up 13% year over year so far, and it's our fourth consecutive quarter of double-digit earnings growth. And then we also had the onset of the Federal Reserve easing cycle, where they cut interest rates in September, they cut interest rates in October, potentially cutting rates. So that helped to get us to where we are. Now, I think it's important to kind of look at where do we go from here? And if we look at it from a perspective of artificial intelligence names that are driving a lot of the returns right now versus the other 493 or so names in the S&P 500, we see a very distinct difference in terms of valuation. So the equal weighted S&P 500 is at 17 times earnings, which is about the average valuation that we've seen historically, whereas the Magnificent Seven or the artificial intelligence names are much higher in terms of their valuations, but they're also supported by very strong growth, earnings growth, cash flows. So I would say, if we're looking at it from a perspective of, are we in a bubble or are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? The short answer would be no, probably not yet. I saw one of our managers label it as, if we're thinking it back to the previous tech bubble, we might be in year 1998 versus 2000 when we saw that crash. So we still think we still have ways to go in terms of the overall trade from an artificial intelligence perspective. And the rest of the market is more reasonably valued at this point. So we do not think we're in a bubble right now.
Okay, excellent. So take out your crystal ball. What do you see the market in the next 12 months? Because that was a question we just got yesterday.
Yeah, so we've seen very strong returns, as I mentioned, from the S&P 500 over the past 2 quarters. That's really off the lows that we experienced following Liberation Day, or the announcement of the reciprocal tariffs. And our chief strategist pointed out the other day that the previous 6 months, so the second quarter and third quarter, were the 5th best return for the S&P 500 in the history of the S&P 500. So very strong returns that we've experienced without a significant pullback during that time period. So do we think there's an opportunity for a pullback? We've certainly seen higher value or higher volatility recently. We could see a pullback, 10% pullback, 5% pullback. We wouldn't be surprised at that. In terms of a recession expectation, we don't think that there's a recession coming. We've had that number fluctuate throughout the year as well, where it was as high as 60 to 70% following the announcement of those tariffs. It's come down, in our opinion, based on a lot of that solid economic data that continues to come into the marketplace. And we're putting our recession probability at closer to 45%. So a little less than a coin flip right now. So we still think that there's opportunity for the market to grow from here and not necessarily fall into a recession.
All right. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming here for our fireside chat. I think those are really good updates. I mean, I could feel there's some good vibes there, and good vibes are important because we have a number of fundraisers on the line. So, the stronger markets help endowments and fundraising. So thank you for being with us, and hopefully you can stay because we might have some questions for you later on.
Great. Thank you.
All right, sure. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move to our speakers now, Emily, MK, and Adam. And all 3 of them have very interesting lives up there in Boston, just like Chris does. And first, Emily Grosha. Emily is the Vice President of Customer Success at Gibsy, and she leads the development of the world's first fully autonomous AI-driven fundraising platform. And following many years in higher education advancement, Emily transitioned to fundraising technology in 2020 with Gravity, and then joined Gibsy. In a prior life, she actually worked at Babson College as part of the development team there, and I actually graduated from Babson, so I'm really psyched to have Emily here. And then a fun fact about Emily, she grew up playing sports and was a rugby national champion in college. Wow, impressive. And now she spends any free time on the sidelines watching her children compete. So Emily, thanks for being with us. Next is MK Young, who serves as the Vice President of Institutional Advancement at Bay Path University in Longmeadow, Massachusetts, where she leads all aspects of the university's fundraising, alumni relations, and external partnerships. With more than 20 years of experience, she has worked in higher ed and other nonprofit sectors. In a prior life, she was the Chief Development Officer at UMass Amherst Foundation and also worked at UPenn. Fun fact about MK, she told me that early in her career, she was a mystery shopper at restaurants, which led into a short-term run as a food critic. Wow, impressive there too. And then finally, Adam Zinkovich, Director of Advancement at Bay Path University. Adam has over 20 years of experience in the development arena, and he manages a portfolio of major gift prospects. He also oversees 2 virtual engagement offices, VEOs, which we're going to learn more about that today, and works closely with Gibsy. A fun fact about Adam is he tells me he's the biggest Incredible Hulk fan in Connecticut. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our speakers, and I'm going to now turn over the program to Emily. Emily?
Fun. Great. Thank you so much, Walter. I like that most of our fun facts are a couple decades old. It makes me feel less badly that I could not come up with one that was more recent than my college athletic days. But thank you so much. We're so excited to be here today and to be sharing about version 2 and autonomous fundraising, and of course have our wonderful partners MK and Adam here with us as well. Just to give you a little bit of background here about version 2. So version 2 is an autonomous fundraising platform powered by Givesy. Givesy is us as a company. Givesy is about a 3-year-old company and was founded by the original founder of a company called Gravity, which was the first AI tool in the nonprofit space. I worked for Gravity, as Walter mentioned, and when we used to train teams about how they were going to use Gravity as an AI enablement tool, which I'll talk more about in a minute, we had to tell them what AI was. And it wasn't that long ago. This was like 2019, 2020. I used to start every training by saying, Netflix, understands what you watched last and can suggest what you might want to watch in the future. That's machine learning. That's AI. I certainly don't have to do that anymore. It's been a really, really exciting couple of years in the AI space. And where we have focused specifically is in autonomous AI. Autonomous AI essentially is the AI that you are not using in your daily life. So when I use AI enablement tools over here on the left-hand side, that's, your chat GPTs, your Claudes, a lot of the tools within CRMs or platforms that allow you to search in natural language. I was actually doing this with my son last night, showing him how he could ask Claude to create a word search for him for a project that he was doing. The great thing about enablement tools is you're not doing queries. You're not having to, get really, really deep in code. You can just ask in the same way you'd ask a person to do something for you. Those enablement tools have come obviously a super long way in the last 5 years, but autonomous AI is where we are specifically focused. And autonomous AI is different because it does not require a human to do anything on the input, and the value is not dependent on that human doing anything as a result of the output. So if AI is suggesting to you who to reach out to or a draft of an email, it's relying on you as a human to do something, right? To gain value from that AI. And those are the enablement tools. Autonomous AI is bringing value in and of itself. So you don't need to ask it to do something, and you don't need to do anything with the output. It does it for you to drive that value. Agent, as you see at the bottom of this slide, can be used in both spaces. And that's what makes it really hard to determine sometimes what's what. And to sort of someone that's not familiar with AI as deeply as we are in this space, that term can be a little bit confusing because it can include things in either buckets. You can have agents that are dependent on you as a human asking it to do something or doing something as a result. You can also have agents completing something end to end. So really think about that in terms of evaluating which type of AI you're looking at. This is a great little graphic too that helps determine that. Again, really focused on implementation, outreach, execution. Does it do those things end to end? And so what we looked at about 1.5 years ago was the ability for AI, completely autonomous AI, to address a problem that we knew that we had here in advancement and for nonprofits. We did a survey, and not surprisingly, only about 3% of organizations' donors are currently managed in gift officer portfolios. So if I have 1,000 donors to my organization, only about 30 of those donors are in managed portfolios, right? So the majority of donors are not in a gift officer portfolio. And that's specifically what we're addressing with autonomous fundraising. How can we take the majority, the 97% of donors who are not getting one-to-one outreach, who are not getting personal phone calls, who are not going out to coffee with you? How can we give them a more elevated experience than what we're doing with annual giving marketing with segmented communications? So this is how it breaks down in that donor pyramid. So 1 to 5% traditional frontline fundraising, 5 to 10% autonomous fundraising. This is the area of the pyramid that we are most focused on. Now, for some of our customers, and MK and Adam will get into this a little bit about how this plays out for them at Baypath and Cambridge College. But that some of those are customers are looking right here. Who are the people just under the managed? Some of our partners are looking a little bit further down. Who are the people that are giving consistently, maybe at a $500 or $1,000 level, who we just want to elevate up or who we want to get back? And now as a gift officer, that 1 to 5%, if you think about what those donors are experiencing, they are not just being asked personally for a gift, right? That fundraiser is working with them all year long consistently in ways that are beyond just solicitation. So that fundraiser is, saying, hey, Walter, I know this is an event that, you might like to go to. You went last year. I hope you can come again. Or, hey, MK, here's some information about this fund or this unit that is doing really great work, and you donated to it in the past. Wanted to make sure that you saw, the latest. And so it knows these donors, fundraisers know these donors individually. And so they can take the content that comes out of your organizations and deliver it personally to the donors who it makes sense to deliver it to. And you're doing that to cultivate them and steward them so that obviously when the time comes to renew their gift, to ask them for more, to have those greater gift conversations, they are deeply connected to your organizations. And that's what we set out to do, these types of activities with autonomous fundraising. And that's what we've done for the past year. We've built the most experienced frontline fundraiser using autonomous artificial intelligence to add trusted digital fundraising capacity to every nonprofit organization. So that specifically trusted digital fundraising capacity is our goal. That's what we're doing for the 100 plus organizations now that have VEOs out and working for them, is to add members to their team, not make their existing team more efficient, not put more things on their existing team's plate, but how do we add capacity across the organization that's addressing populations of donors that you can't address with your existing gift officer team. Each portfolio that a VEO or virtual engagement officer manages has 1,000 donors in it, and those donors are receiving approximately monthly touch points. I'll talk about that in just a second, but that is sort of key, those two things, the 1,000 donor portfolio and monthly touch points. These are some of the milestones that we set out to hit over the past year that we are far above and beyond with those partners who were our early learning partners. We had about 13 partners say, yes, we want to build this with you. A year ago, we were very, very lucky in that we work in a market that really embraces the opportunity to define how this technology is going to impact our work and our future in fundraising. And since then, added additional cohorts so that we now have about 100 in total and cohorts filled through next year. So continuing on that path of where we're going here, but lots of great performance that I'll show you in a minute too. So this is, I can talk forever about autonomous fundraising, but I like to show this really quick 2-minute video because it does it much more efficiently than I do. And it was a great video that the media team in Cleveland did with one of our partners, Cleveland State, that really quickly describes exactly why they chose to use a VEO, what they hope a VEO will do for them. And you'll find out in a minute too, aligns really closely, I think, with Bay Path and Cambridge College's some background as well.
Hi, I'm Ava, a virtual engagement officer at Cleveland State University.
It's not every day that a web page says hello and looks like the nice lady who lives down the street who's married with 2 kids and drives a mid-size SUV. But Ava, as she just told you, is Cleveland State University's new engagement officer who hopes you'll get fired up to be a Viking.
The idea is for engagement. That is our number one priority with this, is engagement, to get people reconnected with Cleveland State again, and then to interact with Cleveland State how they choose.
CSU Director of Annual Giving, John Templeman, says Ava was developed in partnership with a company called Givesy, which developed Ava to be the world's first autonomous fundraiser powered by artificial intelligence. Ava is not going to stare you down on a screen and talk to you this way. Instead, Ava can have a two-way conversation with CSU alumni through emails and texts, and will be able to answer questions and give answers.
So say you were one of those people and your birthday was next week. She might send you a birthday message. If last week we had commencement, had Ava been active earlier, she could have reached out to everyone and said, hey, the commencement exercises are this weekend. Hope you're able to attend. If you're able to attend, here's where it's at. So that type of interaction.
I am delighted and truly grateful to offer you the opportunity to deepen your connection with Cleveland State.
So why Ava? Why now? Templeman says she's not replacing people and taking jobs. It's just that their outreach has to change with the times and simply be able to deal with the sheer numbers of it all. He says there are roughly 140,000 living CSU alumni out there, and about 85% of them still live and work across Northeast Ohio. Ava helps make things easier for the current human staff to stay in touch with everyone, whether it's through fundraising or just saying howdy do.
Hi.
We understand the need and we understand the workload that we have, and ultimately we're trying to serve Cleveland State in the best way possible and serve our mission.
Templeman says you can sign up to join Ava's engagement portfolio or even opt out if AI isn't your thing, and you can always still reach out to their office to talk to an actual real person. Ava, of course, is not a real person, nor will she ever be. But there's lots of real Vikings out there, and the university says they hope to get back in touch.
All right. So very, very quickly, if this is your first introduction to autonomous fundraising, I'm going to just go a little bit into exactly how it works, but I really want to give MK and Adam an opportunity to talk specifically about what they've experienced. So you may leave this with just a few questions unanswered about the details of how it all works in the background. We're happy to answer those at another point. But high level, the VEO is reaching out primarily through text and email. You saw a little sample of that in the video. So if you are assigned to this portfolio, we work with teams to figure out exactly what 1,000 donors are going to be assigned in the same way you would when you hire a new gift officer. And the VEO is reaching out approximately monthly through primarily text and email. It does use those avatar videos occasionally that you've seen. Those are very fun. Also robotic handwritten notes. So it actually sends a note in the mail. We work with a partner that uses a robotic pen. It's a nice, cool way. We're always experimenting with ways to take that online digital experience into the tangible, across that digital threshold, as we call it. It also hands off to humans. So it uses its human team members and connects donors with humans when necessary. If they want to have a larger gift conversation about a planned gift or a scholarship gift, or if there's just a conversation that's going to be better handled by a human than AI, it will hand off to a human to have those conversations. We see those all the time. It also uses, I describe our AI in sort of two different ways. There's our moves management model, and that is determining whether you're getting a solicitation or a cultivation or a stewardship, sort of the type of move in traditional fundraising moves management style. And it uses an overall fundraising knowledge base for that. But specifically to generate the content of that message, it's using your organization-specific knowledge base. So we're taking existing content that you have. So one-to-many marketing emails, event invitations, newsletters, annual giving solicitations, social media, website, all of that stuff is coming into our knowledge base. And that's how it generated content. So it's essentially got everything, probably more, that most of our gift officers know about the day-to-day, about what's going on, because it's taking all that content in constantly. Just a quick example of an engagement here from one of our partners. And this was a real simple early engagement about connecting someone to an alumni club in the area where they lived. You can see the two-way is one of the benefits here, right? So different than when you're just sort of doing one-to-many marketing or social media promotion, it can have a two-way conversation, and we see a lot of great value come of that. As fundraisers, we know the information our donors give us today can be far more valuable than stuff that's accumulated in the database over the last 25 years. And so just understanding what they're interested in today, what means the most to them, why they've stayed connected with your organization for as long as they have, can be very valuable in understanding how we're going to retain those donors and grow their giving. Lots of different use cases across our partners as well. So not everyone looks the same. We'll go into MK and Adam specifically, but those use cases all come with metrics, right? So depending on what metrics you're looking for, what ROI you're looking for, in the same way that when you hire a gift officer, you're trying to decide, is this person responsible for growing leadership annual giving? Are they responsible for being a high revenue generator? Are they responsible for participation in their portfolio? We're doing the same thing with the VEO. This is an example of a high revenue generator, right? Bucknell is one of our highest revenue generating partners. It's because they have a true high-end leadership annual giving use case. So the donors in this portfolio have a history of giving 5,000 or 10,000, over the course of the last 3-5 years. And so they have demonstrated giving, and the VEO's job is to grow that giving, really generate major gift pipeline just under those major gift officers so that they have nice warm handoffs when they're ready. Quick slide over the last year of some of the results that we've seen. And this is where we are to date. So I want to jump right over into MK and Adam. So I will pause just for a second here. Thanks. And you have MK and Adam now joining me on the stage. We call it here in our virtual stage. And let me start here with the advancement landscape, just to give you all, I find it's helpful, when we are talking, to understand how your organization might be similar, might be different, might have, some commonalities between where you're coming from and MK and Adam. So, MK, do you want to share a little bit just about the background of APATH in Cambridge first?
Sure. Thank you, Emily. I won't repeat what's on the slide. You can see when each of the institutions was founded, but what I will call everyone's attention to is the unique circumstances that we're in. Although, given some of the challenges that our sector, higher education, is facing, may not be so unique in the future. And that is that we decided to come together in last summer, 2024. So Bay Path University acquired Cambridge College. There were a lot of strategic reasons for doing that. We had a lot of mission alignment. We were serving similar learners, but there were also a lot of differences. So in doing so, that integration impacted all aspects of our business, but certainly advancement. We had a 30,000 constituent population for Bay Path and nearly 60,000 for Cambridge College. So we are now coming together and needing to figure out how to communicate with more people during this sort of unique circumstance that we found ourselves in. And at the time, the advancement team was 6, we're now 7, and 4 of those people are managing portfolios. So clearly some capacity things to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. That we have a couple of customers who have recently merged alumni populations, and I think that your job in advancement is probably the hardest when it comes to figuring out how to sort of come together as one. Now, when you were thinking about here the challenges that you face, the number of constituents that you have, and you just mentioned the size of your team, what specifically were those challenges that you were looking to address here?
Yeah, I think we have 2 different, again, constituent bases that are trying to come together. Both of those constituent bases, the alumni have different learning modalities that they completed their degrees, whether it be online learners, if they were adult learners, if they were on ground, on campus, traditional learners. So they all require kind of their own way of communication. And we want to kind of build this unified community moving forward while being respectful of what makes each unique. Therefore, the more personalized we can be, the better. But as shared, kind of the issue is that with only 4 staff members, we have many more constituents than we're able to have that one-to-one relationship with alone. We also brought together 2 different databases, so there's some data cleaning that needs to take place there. Some of their staff did not come over in the alumni advancement space. So, some of these challenges are really like just how do we bring these 2 institutions together, and how do we make people feel very personalized in the approach we communicate with them, so they don't feel like what they're getting now is irrelevant to them and no longer applicable. We want them to still see themselves in our combined institution moving forward.
Yeah. We have conversations like this even with universities that have not merged, who maybe have changed a name or a mascot or something, and has to find a way, right, to still recognize the alums experience from their time when they attended that university. And it's a tough challenge. Looking at that and those constituents that you just mentioned, Adam, what opportunities specifically lie within that constituent base, that made you sort of start to think about how you're going to address those, and with autonomous fundraising in particular?
Yeah, so with the bringing of both institutions together, that increased our constituents to around 90,000, and with around only 1,000 that are being managed by our physical staff here, we were trying to think of a way to engage, as you mentioned, kind of that middle tier of the pyramid. Those that have indicated an interest in getting more involved could potentially become those major gift donors in the future, but what's kind of that next step to bring that relationship up? And when there is so much noise with emails and just the world is over communicating with us every day. How do you kind of set yourself apart? And we feel as though that one-to-one relationship is a great way to do so, even if that one-to-one relationship is with a AI VEO. So
Great. I'm going to let Ava introduce itself here. And then I'll have, MK and Adam, you share a little bit about how you approach this idea in the first place.
Hi there. I'm Ava Walker, a virtual engagement officer at Bay Path University, powered entirely by artificial intelligence. I'm being developed through a groundbreaking partnership between Bay Path and Givsy's version 2 R&D lab to create the world's first autonomous engagement officer. I am delighted and truly grateful to offer you the opportunity to deepen your connection with Bay Path. By engaging with me, you're not only supporting Bay Path's pioneering leadership in AI for social good, you're also supporting an innovation that will empower all nonprofits whose missions are changing the world.
So before I get into metrics here, MK and Adam, do you want to talk a little bit about, I'll even go back to Ava.
Hi there.
Talk just a little bit about how you approach this idea with your alumni, with your boards, and how did you involve them in that process? Once you sort of thought this is something that you want to do.
Sure. I'll start and maybe pass to Adam. I'll talk a little bit about our trustees, and then Adam can talk about our alumni councils.
Right.
So we have a board of trustees that I would categorize as very entrepreneurial, very innovative. We've just gone through an acquisition that they, supported and led. We also have a president who I would describe in the same way. So the chair of our trustees actually helped make this possible because she funded the entire project. And I'd be happy to take that offline with others. It was a really great sort of experience to work with her in that way. But the trustees, in partnership with the executive leadership team here, established an AI and AUI lab over the summer. And we started exploring ways that we could utilize AI responsibly in all of our different business units, and certainly advancement was part of that. So we did a lot of research. We looked at other places, not just version 2 AI, and they far and above rose to the top for us. So we had trustee support really early from the start from the trustees, but then we needed to socialize with our alumni councils. So I'll turn to Adam to talk a little bit about that. Oh, before I do that, I just want to mention, we did also have the benefit of bringing Emily to talk to our trustees. They had a lot of questions, and it was a really great opportunity for them to learn more before we fully committed.
And with our alumni councils, we tried to socialize the idea as early as possible that we might be exploring this AI fundraiser partnership with potential agencies. And I think initially with all things AI, there can be some concern and questions, but the general feedback was, even though I'm unsure of certain aspects of this, I know AI is a direction that everyone needs to embrace and move forward with in their own ways. So our alumni council is made up of both councils. We have one for each institution, different decades, programs, and backgrounds that all came together. We framed it as being a tool to connect, not to replace the people touch. And ultimately, the individuals that the VEOs are working with, in an ideal world, they graduate to that human handoff, and that's when they can really have those deep relationships. And it's really a way for us to reach people more personally than we could alone.
Hey, Adam, can I ask a question? What can you share what some of the concerns were when you talked to the alumni council? I mean, obviously there are a lot of benefits too, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think sometimes there was a lot of discussion just around how Ava looked, or Ava's name, or the things in which are easy to understand in the AI space, where it's easy to say, but once they saw this video, how could you not love Ava? Ava looks great, friendly, So I think we eventually came to agreement there. There were some questions around kind of the data security aspect as well as the transparency aspect. They wanted to just make sure that those who are being communicated with knew that they were being communicated with by AI and not a person, so there was no confusion there. And I think Emily can maybe talk a bit to those points later. But yeah, mainly, are really around the data security, the transparency, and kind of the look of the AI.
I'll also just add there were some folks that were concerned about the accuracy of the information that would be fed to our constituents. And several of those people that were most vocal about that volunteered to be part of our seed portfolio. And I can say one in particular who we're very close with, she's a former trustee, has been so pleased with how accurate and how informative and how responsive Ava has been in her interactions with her.
And kind of playing off of that, she had mentioned that I think over her 10 questions that she asked to the AI, she was just super impressed with all the responses. All the information she received back was accurate. In the case of this partnership, when it's a question the VEO can't answer on its own via a knowledge base, it will reach out to one of our members on staff who can then get that information to her, and it either goes back to the individual or we can reach out to the individual directly ourselves. So it's a very timely response. And I think she had also mentioned that the VEO was one of the first to wish her a happy birthday on her birthday. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that the data comment's really important because I think, believe it or not, my doctor's using a VEO. So when I called for an appointment, I didn't actually know it was a VEO till the very end, which I thought that was interesting. But the reason I bring it up is because I specifically said I have to wait till December to have my appointment because of the timing and the benefits, because you have to wait a full year for your checkup, right? The VEO keeps texting me saying, hey, do you want an earlier appointment? Like they should know I can't have an earlier appointment, because I have to wait till December. You told me to wait till December. So it's kind of interesting. It's like a little disconnect there. So anyways, I don't mention that.
Yeah. I think that is, Walter, a good segue perhaps to what sets us apart a little bit. Out at Givesy, we are fully focused on fundraising specifically, number one. Our team is all former fundraisers. Anyone who is working, especially those on the customer success team, there's about 15 of us. Everyone has some sort of nonprofit advancement background, many former direct frontline fundraisers. And that part's really important to us. We understand that donor trust is of utmost importance, that's sort of number one. And accuracy is important. Understanding what they want, what they need, what they don't want, I think is a part of our conversation every single day. And I think that's where our customers chose to, sort of MK's point, chose to partner with us. In part because of some of those reasons. I think the people that you get when you work with Givesy, the humans behind, all of this work is still really important. As much as we talk about how wonderful VEOs and AI are, the humans that are building it and working with you as partners are just as important. I want to talk a little bit too about the goals and the metrics that you are choosing to measure success by, because I think this is something we learned at Givesy and version 2 in this past year, that the goals that you set ultimately then need to trickle down to the people you put in that portfolio, right? So if ultimately you want qualification as a goal or engagement as a goal, who are the right donors to put in that portfolio that, one, will have an impact? Like, why do we want to engage those people? What is the end result of that engagement? Is it because they have capacity to give? Is it because they've demonstrated they've given in the past? Are there other reasons, which might be the case? And so putting those goals together right from the beginning has become really central to our onboarding process. What went into figuring out who's going into this portfolio for you all?
Yeah, for that, we primarily looked at those who've had some type of recent engagement with either institution, whether it be a gift or they previously participated in an event or served in a volunteer capacity. We also wanted to focus around some key anniversary years for our alumni, like the class years of 10, 25, 50. And for Cambridge College, since we brought on all of their data and there was so much of it, trying to figure out from all of them who would be the best 1,000 was a little trickier, but the added step we did for them was making sure that those individuals had opened one of our recent larger communications from us. So that way we knew at least they were not only the emails were accurate, but that they were interested enough to open the emails from us. So it was a great way to take a not as confident data set and to make it to make sure that the VEO could be as successful as possible. So.
And just go ahead.
No, go ahead. Okay.
That, fundraising at the end of the day is our ultimate objective, but we recognize that in order for us to be successful there, we really have to engage this broader swath of our constituent base. And so our metrics, unlike some of the other clients, might be a little bit more geared towards that two-way conversation and engagement. But we did select people who had some level of giving to the extent that we were able to.
Yeah. And I think, what we're tracking here in terms of qualification and engagement speaks to that, right? So you want that engagement, but tracking graduations, upgrades, participation, retention, all of that is where you want to start to see that growth as a result of that engagement. So I'm just flipping back and forth between the Bay Path one and the Cambridge College one, because you can see, exactly to your points, your Bay Path folks, the revenue goals are a little bit higher. They're a little bit warmer. And Cambridge, you're starting a little bit from scratch here, right? With yeah. There are a couple of just quick examples of engagements that you've seen so far. Do you want to talk through a little bit about what you're learning about your constituents and why some of these engagements matter? Because I think a lot of people come in and think, oh, yeah, two-way engagement, great. But why, right? Then beyond just being excited about this stuff, why does this specific engagement type matter?
I think it's pretty neat to see the ways in which the individuals are interacting with the VEOs. We're feeding VEOs content, and they're in turn creating emails and text messages in unique ways that we may have not really even thought of ourselves. So in a way, we're kind of learning from the way in which the VEO is communicating with our constituents, and it's raised some different feedback in terms of constituents that want to offer internships, want to join one of our councils, want to join a panel to speak to students, want to come to our Women's Leadership Conference reunion. So it's a way of really identifying these two groups of 1,000 that we thought could have potential and seeing that potential materialize.
Yeah, I'll pull up, it looks like another one about someone interested in a grad school program. And I think recently too, your VEO has been promoting your Women's Leadership Conference too. Is that right?
Yeah, and there's the ability, they know which of our constituents are alums, so they're able to mention the special alumni discount code to those, where for others, they don't mention the alumni discount code. So there can be that detailed segmentation built into the custom fields of information that the VEO is able to tap into.
Right. MK, you asked me in the beginning of this what your opt-out rate was as we were just jumping on here before we got started. And I think that speaks actually sort of to some of the next, this next slide where I thought it would be a good place to transition into some Q&A. But we have been pleasantly surprised, but still surprised at how low the opt-out rate has been since we started. That was one of the things we thought in the beginning, maybe like 10, 20% might choose to opt out. And we had a whole plan for how we were going to address that and fill it. But your opt-out rate, yeah, you've got one of each.
One on each side with portfolios of 1,000, which I think is incredible. And I knew that we had at least one because one of those I know personally, that person's an alum and also a member of our faculty. And that opt-out was motivated really because of capacity, not lack of interest. So you could almost argue that we've had just one out of 2,000.
That's fantastic. And that does track with what we see across other partners too. We not only have seen really low opt-out rates, but this is a newer engagement from just a couple of weeks ago with one of our Humane Society partners, hence the dog emoji paw print there. Not a emoji that our Bay Path or Cambridge College VEOs would use, but relevant to this organization. Really how we see that donor perception changing in just one interaction, right? So the immediate sort of, maybe this isn't for me, to intrigue or curiosity. And we see partners with some really amazing examples of how proud, alums, donors, constituents are of their organization for trying new things, for pushing the limit on how they could potentially, expand their donor base, support their missions. And I think that's been something that we have been one of the highlights of this work over the past year is watching how proud constituents are of the organizations they support for, carving a path for this, because AI is absolutely, undoubtedly going to be a part of our work and our lives. And it's a really unique opportunity, I think, to allow nonprofits to determine how that's going to shape their future, as opposed to sitting back and letting for-profits shape it for us and then sort of figure it out 10 years later, like we've done with a lot of other technology in the nonprofit space. And I think this is where, we get the most excited when we see those perceptions changing, right before our eyes, for sure. Walter, should we turn it back to you for questions?
Yeah, let's segue. I mean, that was a very impressive presentation. I know we only had 30 minutes and you could probably do a whole day seminar, but you did a great job. And I was especially impressed with that slide that said 4 million had been raised, because I have been following, Gibbsy, because you send out a weekly update by your founder, Mr. Martell.
You sure did.
Adam Martell. And I've been watching the number. At first, it was less than 1 million. Now it's 4 million. Let's go to the question. So, Emily, how does AI fundraising interact with giving and the need for a personal touch when communicating with individuals?
Yeah, I love this question when I saw it, because we get this a lot. This is super common. As fundraisers in particular, our knee-jerk reaction is that fundraising is personal, because it is, because the work that we do as individual humans is very personal. Humans cannot be replaced with AI in this space, but 97% of our donors aren't getting that, right? And so that's where, how can we elevate people up from one-to-many marketing and sort of all the noise that MK and Adam talked about, all the emails. We spent a lot of time 10 or 15 years ago in this space with segmented marketing campaigns to make that more personal. And autonomous AI just gives us that bridge to make donors' experiences more like the ones that we can give that top 3%. So I think when it comes to personalization, yeah, the gold standard is a human. It's not possible. There's just a ratio problem in this industry that's never going to happen. And so how can we make more of our donors have a little bit more of a personal experience in a way that's just better than segmented marketing before we can manage some of the human?
Okay. I don't know if MK wanted to add anything to that.
Yeah, to me, this is relational fundraising with digital scale. So it's exactly what Emily just said. 1,000 constituents in a portfolio. For a human to manage that, that's 8 to 10 people. To be able to respond to that many inquiries, share that many bits of information, think from a personalized perspective about that many constituents, it's just beyond the realm of reality. And so it's a great way to augment the humans that we do have on the team. So for me, it's relational fundraising with digital scale.
Okay, thank you. We have a couple of good questions that just came up here. Julie asked, do you need to disclose that the communications are being done by AI, even if it's just text or emails?
Yeah, absolutely. That was sort of one of our founding principles a year ago, is that we wanted to be transparent. We don't want anyone to think that Ava has an office over there next to MK and Adam. We want to make sure people know that they are interacting with AI. And the purpose of the avatar is not to trick someone into thinking it's human. It's to help them understand how they might interact with it in a way that's similar to how they might be able to respond or ask questions to a person. But those first communications, there's a whole rollout plan that we work with our partners on. They send a communication. So Baypath and Cambridge sent a communication from them to the portfolio first, saying, you're going to be hearing from a VEO. Here's what it is. It's fully powered by AI. And then they start hearing from the VEO, which then also reiterates that it is powered by AI. So there's sort of a whole rollout path that is focused specifically on making sure they understand that this is AI that they're working with.
Okay. And then here's a question from Kate. She says, do you have to already have donors and contacts, or will the VEO solicit new potential donors? And also, is it just for higher ed or other sectors have you used it?
Yeah, so you do need donors. You need constituents in your database. It works with the data that you have in your CRM. We've worked with 1 or 2 partners on donor acquisition, but as you can imagine, that is definitely just like re-engaging donors who are lapsed 7 or 10 years. That's a bigger challenge than it is to get someone back that's lapsed 1 or 2 years, or get someone to grow their existing giving. So the majority of our partners are working with much warmer portfolios of donors. Some might have small segments within that 1,000 that are focused on acquisition. But yes, in terms of beyond higher ed, absolutely. Higher ed makes up, I believe, 63% as of today are partners. So the majority of our partners are higher ed. That is a number that we see, that the percentage is a number we see going down. We have a lot of growth in healthcare. We expect the most growth this next year to be in what we will call the general nonprofit space. A lot of social services, humane societies, multiple actually, children's hospitals, scientific research. So that's an area in particular, the general nonprofit space, that we anticipate growing significantly in the next year, which is typical for new tech, to see higher ed really adopting first and then everyone else coming in behind. Adam, did you want to comment too? Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that not everybody that we selected for our portfolios had a giving history either. So it's really looking at the different ways that your constituents have engaged with your agency to figure out what the best mix could be, because it doesn't mean that everybody that's in the portfolio needs to give a gift, but if they have that touch point, whether it's as simple as them having opened an email from your organization, it's a good way to indicate they have an interest with you enough to take that next step. And then eventually, ultimately, that might lead to financial support.
Yeah. So MK and Adam, let's shift to you for a question. How long did it take you to onboard your VEO? And was there a lot of staff time required?
I'll mainly have Adam answer this, but I'll say we made the decision sometime in late summer, and we launched September 9th. So we've 10 weeks in, and I would say that our partnership, I mean, they were with us every step of the way, but Adam can go into more detail about the nuts and bolts.
Yeah, we had a great kind of Trello board system with contacts over at version 2, and they gave us all of the to-dos and the kind of the urgency of the different to-dos. So it was a great way for us to really prioritize, here's what we need to do today, tomorrow, by the end of the week. And then we were able to kind of assign certain tasks to certain individuals of our staff as appropriate. So really within a month and a half, we were able to meet all the deliverables needed for execution. And a big one is really just coming up with that portfolio. And outside of that, it's just a lot of little nuts and bolts, getting those knowledge bases ready to go, figuring out kind of the topics that will be discussed each month, things like that. But it wasn't a full-time job. It was maybe like part of a part-time job for at least a month for me and a few others. But it was amazing how quick the turnaround could be.
Oh, okay, excellent. And then here's a question from Alex from Fisher College. He has two questions. One, based on the survey data, are there particular demographics or donor segments that respond more positively to the VEO? And how does it integrate with the systems, the CR systems like Razor's Edge or Little Green Light?
Yeah. That first question is exactly what surprised all of us at version 2 the most. We thought, AI, people that prefer AI, maybe even over human interaction, might skew younger. That said, our strongest engagement and giving demographics are in the 50 to 72 range. And when you look at those two-way engagements, it kind of speaks for itself in that I think those are people that have been supporters of you likely for multiple years, multiple decades in some cases, and have never been given a channel to share why, or share their experience or what connects them back. Because whether you're making a gift of $100,000 or you're making an annual gift for 10 years of $100, sometimes those 10 years of $100, they have like real deep personal connections to you, and they're really prideful about the work that you're doing and their support of it. And they are the ones that we see the most engagement with. Text is by far the more successful two-way engagement channel over email. And I'll throw my mom under the bus for a minute, that I always use her as an example here, that if I text my mom, she's going to text me back right away. If I send her an email, it's going to take a lot longer, right? So I think that, that 50 to 72 age range and far beyond the 72, that is the age range that, really, I think most of us are engaging in text very, very regularly. And it's a great way to allow the VEO to have a two-way conversation. And the integration, is that what you were going to say, MK? Yeah.
I was going to move to the CRM, but please go first.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to mention, we also use Razor's Edge here. In fact, both Cambridge College and Bay Path did. So we're still in the throes of integrating those two instances of the same platform. But one person that's a key member of our team, our internal team, who's not with us today, is our Director for Advancement Services. And I can just speak at a high level, and maybe Emily can provide more context, but she receives a weekly sort of data information file, and we're able to capture what we need to capture in our CRM so that we can look at that ROI and assess productivity and other metrics.
Right. Okay. So, Emily, I know we have a list of other questions that the audience sent. Are there any that you wanted to finish up with? Because we have a number of questions here.
Yeah. I think, let's see. The one thing I think I'll just add, and maybe this is a good way to wrap up in general, is trends, right? What trends are we seeing? And overall, the thing that I think is surprising and not is that the basic fundraising principles that we knew before all of this started still apply. The donors who are the hardest to get back are the ones that are the most lapsed. The donors that are the easiest to start to engage and grow their giving are the ones who have given in the past year, the past 2 years, maybe 3 years. We know in fundraising, there's a 3-year cliff, that it's pretty reasonable to get our live bounce back. It's reasonable to get side bounce back. As soon as you hit that 3 years, and definitely when you hit that 5, that's when it's the most challenging to get folks back. Perhaps even harder than acquiring new donors sometimes that are engaging in your content and in your organization today. And that's what we see too in terms of trends. I think the other thing we see from a trend, Bay Path and Cambridge started with 2 VEOs because they were working with both colleges. We've seen that happen more and more frequently, but also the expansion into a VEO per major gift pipeline. So if you're a large organization that is raising money for 3 or 4 or 10 different priorities, healthcare service line, in higher ed, units, schools, athletics, all of those, that's where we're starting to see the expansion of, okay, under this group of gift officers, we need a VEO. Under this group of gift officers, we need a VEO. And that's a trend that is newer, that we are just seeing, I'd say, from this past summer, really start to expand and grow.
Okay. Well, thanks, Emily. Are there any final comments you want to make, or was...
I think the trends kind of wraps it up for me.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, quite honestly, I think this was, we're super appreciative of the opportunity to share this. The only final thing I'll say is that we are just over a year in. So we've learned so much. We've raised $4 million in total. We have over 100 partners that are continuing to build this with us. But this next year, I think, is really going to be our opportunity to further shape and define how autonomous fundraising is going to impact our work permanently. Lots of experimenting in R&D over the past year, and now really looking at how we scale that and how we hone what we've learned from this year.
Okay. Well, Emily, thank you very much. And I just want to say this is a great presentation. I've been following you guys for a while, and I just think it's amazing how AI is evolving. Before it was just for efficiencies and things like that, like invitations.
Yeah.
I was actually helping fundraise, so it is a an amazing evolution, and we're going to continue to watch closely through your nice updates every week how you guys are doing.
We won't let you do that.
Yeah. So I wanted to just say 3 quick thank yous as we finish up here. First, again, I want to thank the speakers. Chris, great job on the fireside chat. Emily, MK, Adam, I really appreciate the excellent presentation you just did. There was a lot of preparation for this and pre-calls. So thank you. Let's give them a round of applause. And I also, secondly, I wanted to thank our production team. Without them, we would never have these events because there's a lot of behind the scenes. So Peter Regano, Dennis Bruno, and Ria Cheltenham. And then finally, I wanted to thank you all for coming and being participants today. We have a number of clients and friends and colleagues on the line. Thank you for being on the call today. Ladies and gentlemen, our next session is probably going to be in February. We're going to revisit private foundations. So that's going to be session number 114. So I'm all excited to start doing that. I just want to say thanks again, everyone, for being on the call. Have a happy Thanksgiving, happy holidays, and see you in the new year. Have a great day.